Hey everyone, this is Brian Marino with Apex Software. And in this video, we're going to watch a training webinar on getting started using ApexSketch version 7. If you're looking for something specific, check the comments of this video. There will be hyperlinks where you can skip the specific parts of the video if you're looking for something specific. Also, if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. I will be keeping an eye on that. If you know anyone who would be interested, feel free to like, share, and/or subscribe so you don't miss out on any updates. But with all that out of the way, let's get into this training webinar in session. Moving down to the bottom left, we have some view tools here. So these are all view tools. The first one here is center. So if you hit C on your keyboard, it'll center your sketch, or if you click this button, it'll center as well. I use this one very often when I'm sketching, which is center and fit. Hold down Shift and press C. That's the shortcut to this button. What that'll do is it'll blow the sketch up as big as it can be or as small as it needs to be to fit on the page. To the right of that, zoom. This allows you to create a fence or a box around something, and it'll zoom in on whatever is in that box. To the right of that, the grid on or off. We have users that prefer the grid. Some users prefer not to have the grid. This is where you can come. To the right of that, we have snap on or off. I'd recommend leave this on all the time. I'll show you some scenarios where you might want to turn it off, and I'll show you some reasons why you're probably going to want to leave it on all the time once I get into sketching. Moving over to the right, filter. This allows you to filter things. Let's say we wanted to print a sketch with no dimensions. We can come to the filter here, check dimensions, and it'll hide all the dimensions, and then I could print it with none, and then come back and uncheck this, and they'll show back up. So it allows you to temporarily hide things. Typically, it's used when you print. To the right of that, we have the zoom slider. So this lets you know how far you zoomed in at whatever scale you're at. So we're at a 1 to 10 scale, and we're at 101%. The scale doesn't matter like it used to. Most anything you need to draw, you're probably going to be able to draw at a 1 to 10 scale. If you needed to print it at a specific scale, you can now tell it what scale to print at when you print. So it's up to you whether or not you change the scale or not, but typically you're probably not going to have to mess with it. Moving over to the right here, we have the page indicator. So I'm on page 1 of 1. If you had more than one page, you might have 1 of 5. And if you click the page right, you'll start going through pages. Page left will bring you back. If there is no second page and you click page next, it'll ask you if you want to add a page. Moving up to the top right here, we have a couple of tabs. So we have define area, text, symbols, calcs, and survey. These are quick access. So let's say I wanted to quickly just define an area, but I didn't want to come click over here. I can just hover over define. It'll fly out. I can grab the label I want, and when I move my mouse away, it'll close. Say I wanted to quickly check my calcs. I can just hover over calcs. The calc panel will fly out. I can see what I have drawn, and then when I move my mouse away, it'll go away. So you can quickly hover to have any of these tabs open. If you click the button here on the left, it'll open it and it'll pin it open so that it stays open all the time until you either click this button again or you click this pin to unpin it. Either one will unpin. So that's kind of the difference between accessing it on the left side versus just hovering over the tab. Quick access, pin it open, it'll stay open till you close it. It's more of a user preference and how you decide to use it. So now that we kind of know our way around the interface a little bit, let's go ahead and get started drawing. So to get started drawing, we're going to come to the draw area tool. And once again, this is pretty much define area in Apex 5. You click on draw area, you're now in a draw mode. And the way you can tell you're in a draw mode, or a good way to tell whether or not you're in a draw mode, you'll notice my cursor is a crosshair. If I'm in an edit mode, my cursor is a pointer arrow. So you can easily tell whether you're in a draw mode by what your cursor looks like. So if you're in this mode and you want to select something to move it, you're in the wrong tool. You need to switch over to here, and then you can select it and move it. So just a little tip on paying attention to the cursor to see what draw mode you're in. Another thing, if anyone has already started using Apex 7, and when they first installed it and opened it, it might have asked you, do you want to use the modern or the legacy drawing style? Anyone who picked legacy, when you click this define area button, a define area panel is going to open in the middle. You're going to pick what you want to draw, and you're going to draw one area at a time like you did in Apex 5. If you're using that drawing style, everything will apply to you that I'm showing, except for the way that I draw and define. The keystrokes will be the same in drawing, but you're going to have to close that shape completely before you can move on to the next. In the modern, I can draw everything at one time. I'm not going to have to trace over common walls, and I'm going to define my areas when I'm done. Again, you can use the legacy drawing style. I'm going to show the modern, and I'm going to show you some reasons why you probably should take the time to learn it, because it might take you a day or two or 3 or 4 sketches to get comfortable with it. But once you pass that hump, you're going to be way more efficient, and it's going to become way more easier to use. It's just getting over that hump. is the hardest part. So I'm going to go ahead and click on draw area, and I got my crosshair. It doesn't matter where we start sketching on the page. If we're creating a new sketch, we can start way down here. We can start way up here. We can always recenter the sketch anytime we want. So it's not super important where we start. I'm going to go ahead and tap enter. My cursor will turn green. And as any current Apex user knows, green means pin down. So if I move my mouse, or if I tap arrow keys, or if I type in a number and hit a direction, it's going to draw a line. I'm not going to get super detailed on drawing because I'm assuming most of you already know how to kind of draw. So I'll just go into the basics. To get started, our first wall is 20 feet and it's going to the right. So on my keyboard, I'm going to type in 20, and the HUD for Apex 7 is right here. You see where it says draw with pen in red? As I'm typing in numbers, keep an eye down there and you can kind of see what I'm typing as I go. So in this case, I'm going to type in 20 and you'll see 20 show up in red, and then I'm going to tap the right arrow and you'll notice I get a line. It's red. So red means we have not placed this in the page yet, so we can still edit this line. So let's say we're looking at a blueprint, or we drew some hand measurements, and maybe we had like 3 or 4 measurements in one line. So what if we had a 20, then the next line we measured was 8, and then the next was 6, and then the next was 3. I just hit each number and kept tapping the right arrow, and it just added that number up for me. So I let the program do the math for me. Some users I talk to, they'll just kind of add all the numbers up in their head, type in that one number and hit the direction. In my opinion, it's easier to just enter all 4 and just keep hitting the right arrow until you enter them all in, and then you'll have your number. In this case, we actually wanted this line to be 20. So another tip is, if you draw out a line like this, before you anchor it, or before you press enter to place it, if you type in a number and press enter with no direction, it'll actually change that line to whatever distance you enter. So I want 20 here. So I'm just going to type in 20. And then when I tap enter, you'll notice the line changed to 20. So there's other reasons this is important, and I'll show you later on in the demo why. But again, type in the distance, tap the direction, tap enter, and we're ready to move on to our next wall. So I'm going to go ahead and tap 10 down, enter, 4 left, enter, 7 down, enter. So the way you draw is very similar to what you're used to. You know, nothing changed there. What did change is that I can press enter at any time and pick up my pen and start drawing somewhere else. So if I hit enter a second time with no line drawn, my cursor will turn gray. Now I could come start drawing from this way, or I could add something on right here, or I could draw a building over here. So I'm not locked down to finishing what I'm drawing. I can kind of draw, switch tools, continue on as I go. I'm going to go ahead and put my cursor back on the end of this wall, press enter, and you notice all those walls behind me turn purple when I press enter. Well, what that lets me know is that I'm connected to all of those walls that are purple. So that tells me all those lines are connected to one another. That's important in some cases, not in others. And as I go along, I'll kind of show you some important things and then some reasons where you're not going to be purple all the way around. I'm going to go 35 down next. We'll go 20 left. I'm going to go 8 up, 6 left, 6 down, 1 left. Now let's say we realize we made a mistake. That 3-foot wall coming down between the two 10-foot walls should have been 5 feet down. I need to go fix that. So how am I going to fix that? What I'll do, I'm going to hit delete, and each time I press delete, it's going to delete a wall, right? So I'm going to delete all the way back to the wall that's wrong. I'm going to change it to 5, press enter. Then I'm going to hit the insert key on my keyboard, and it's going to insert all the walls that I deleted back. So I don't have to remember what those walls even were. I'm just deleting them, fixing that one wall, and then deleting or inserting everything back. I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to change it back to 3. So I'm going to delete, 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 delete. We'll go 3 down, enter, and then I'm going to insert, 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 and put all my lines back. So as you're drawing, if you've realized you made a mistake 5, 10 lines back, delete all the way back, fix it, and just insert all your lines back. I'm going to tap enter a second time with no line drawn. I'm going to switch to my pointer, and I'm just going to click and drag and then roll the wheel on my mouse and then switch back to draw. So this is a good example of you can switch tools, you can do different things, and then you can come back into drawing. So I just zoomed in on this point. We're going to add a bay window here. So let's say we have a bay window and we use the rise and run to measure this bay window. So it goes 2 down and then 2 left to get this first angle of my bay window. So I'm going to go ahead and tap 2 on the keyboard and press the down arrow, but I'm not going to press enter. Then I'm going to press 2 and press my left arrow. So now we can see on screen, we have a 2 and 2 rise and run. It's a 45-degree angle we can see there. And then 2.8 is the length of the wall. 135 is the opposite angle. So it's going to give you both sides. In this case, this is the wall I want. So I'm going to go ahead and tap enter and it'll place it. And then the next wall is going to go 6 feet left, enter. And then for the second side of the bay window, I'm just going to press B on my keyboard and it'll it'll mirror the first angle for me. So it saved me a couple of keystrokes. I didn't have to go 2 up, 2 left, or 2 left, 2 up. I just hit B, it drew it for me and mirrored it, and now I'm ready to move on. There's actually other ways that I'm going to use B, and I'll show you that here toward the end. At this point, I want to see my whole sketch again. So I'm going to hold Shift and press C, and my sketch is now all in view. I could have also clicked the center and fit button here, but I just used the shortcut key of Shift C to get there. We drew an angle using Rise and Run. Let's say we had a larger angle we needed to draw, and we had some type of tool where we actually were able to measure what the angle is, and then we measured how long the wall is. The way we draw that, we call it turn. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to enter the distance of the wall, and then does it go left or right? So this would be left, this would be right. So ours goes left. And then let's say the degree was 53 degrees. So the way we're going to draw that, we're going to type in 20 for the distance. And if you keep an eye on the HUD, you'll see 20. And then I'm going to tap L for left. When I tap L, you'll see it says 20-foot line at 90 degrees left. It should actually be 53 degrees left. So I'm going to type in 53, and you'll see it replaces the 90 with the 53. So there's a 20-foot line going to the left at 53 degrees. So we can see it on screen. It's showing me 53 degrees. It figured the Rise and Run out for me, and we have our 20-foot wall there. So we can kind of confirm all of our measurements at this point and then tap Enter to place it. For the next wall, a lot of times when you draw an angle like this, you're going to have the next 2 or 3 walls coming 90 degrees off of that angle. So the way we draw off of that would be the same way. Let's say we have a 15-foot wall going to the right this time, and it's 90 degrees off of this angle. So I'm going to type in 15, R for right, and then I'm going to press Enter. So I'm 90 degrees off of that 53-degree wall at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and tap Enter to place it. And now I'm ready to square up my sketch and close it. So I'm going to use these gray lines you see here to actually help me close my sketch and make sure everything's squared up. So the 14 going straight up with the Y in parentheses, that's the distance from where you're at straight up to where you started, where the bullseye is. If you hit Y, it'll draw that line. The 16.6, that's how far it is from where you're at to where you started. If you press A, that's what it'll draw. The 8.9, that's how far to the right with the X. So that's actually the line that I want to draw. So I'm just going to press X and it'll draw that for me. And then I want to press A to auto close and it'll draw the 14. So the last 2 walls, I use the program to square it up and close it for me. And that also helped me to confirm are my measurements right. I can measure that last wall and make sure it's what it should be. And that tells me everything else should be about right. So we've drawn our first shape. You notice nothing is defined yet. We just drew a shape at this point. The program doesn't know the square footage of it. We don't know what type of area it is. Nothing's defined at this point. We're still drawing areas. So the next thing we're going to do, let's say we have a patio we need to add here. So I mentioned, you'll have purple all the way around. You're going to be connected. This is one of those points where you're not going to be connected all the way around. Let's say that our patio starts here. If you get your cursor close, you'll notice it kind of snaps to the corner. This is one of the reasons I recommended leaving that snap on, because it makes it really easy to just align your cursor with a corner. You can still press J on your keyboard to jump to a corner as well, but it just makes it really easy to align things with that snap. So at this point, I'm going to start from this corner. I'm going to tap Enter, and I'm going to go 6 feet right. And then let's say we have a curved corner on this house, and we measured the Rise and Run. So let's say it goes 10 down and then 10 right. So our curve starts at the end of that 6-foot wall, and the curve ends where my green cursor is now. So once we have this opening pulled out, or the chord, and we haven't placed it yet, on your keyboard on the right side, if you have a number pad, if you tap minus, each time you tap minus, it'll start curving at 15 degrees. And then that 0.5 in green, that's the arc height. So now we're at 0.9, 1.4, 1.9, and we're at 60 degrees. Typically, a curved corner will be 90, so I'm going to tap it out to 90 degrees, which is right there. 90-degree curve, it's telling me the arc height is 2.9, and then the Rise and Run. So once you have that curve where you want it, go ahead and tap Enter, and it'll place it in. Now we need to draw down to that bottom corner there. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line down to the bottom, tap Enter. I don't need to trace all of those walls back to where I started at this point. So all I need to do is press Enter again, and now I can pick up my cursor and add another area if needed. So I'm going to move down to this corner, snap to it, tap Enter, and I'm going to add a garage. Let's say there was a garage here. I don't need to trace back down that wall, so I'm going to tap Enter a second time. My cursor will turn gray. I'm going to add a second floor to this as well. You may or may not draw second floors, but I'm going to draw one just to kind of show you some of the efficiencies. So let's say this house has a second floor that covers the garage, and it covers half of the first floor, but this is open area. So what we're going to do, let's say the second floor comes to this corner and it goes 12 down, 6 over, and then it comes over to this corner here. This is second floor, and then the second floor also goes over the garage. So we have everything drawn at this point. We have a first floor, a second floor, a garage, and a patio. Now we need to define these or identify what we've drawn. So the way we're going to do that, we're going to come over to the little house icon here on the left for define area, and that's going to bring up our list of areas. For our first floor is this piece, so I'm going to click inside of it, but it's also this piece here. So I'm going to click here as well, and you'll notice everything in blue now, that's all my first floor. If you happen to click in something that shouldn't have been there, if you just click it again, it'll so select it, deselect it. So don't be too worried about selecting something by mistake. You can easily click it again to deselect it if needed. But in this example, everything highlighted is my first floor. So I'm going to come over here, select first floor, and click apply. Now my first floor is defined. If it's just a single shape like this patio, I can actually just drag and drop the word patio and it'll define it. Same thing with the garage. I can drag and drop the word garage in here and define it. Now, if it's multiple pieces, like the second floor is going to be this piece and this piece, you're going to have to select all the pieces, select the area type, then use apply. Now we have our second floor. I'm going to go ahead and close my define panel. I'm going to click on my pointer arrow. I'm just going to kind of drag this over to the side and then select the second floor, and I'm going to move it off and then center and fit. So as you can see, we got that whole second floor, and all we had to do was draw 4 lines. Otherwise, we used the footprint of the first floor in the garage to get the remainder of it. A couple of things you may notice on this second floor. We're missing some dimension labels here. The reason for that is because the dimensions exist over here, so we didn't want to duplicate them. So that's why there's no dimension on these walls. Let's say we want the dimensions. So what we're going to do while we're in the pointer, we're going to click inside the area that we want the dimensions for, and then I'm going to hold Control and then press F10. All the dimensions are on the inside. All of the dimensions are gone. All the dimensions are on the outside. So now I'm going to click off of it, and we can see now we have all of our dimensions on our second floor. You might also notice we have two 20-foot dimension labels here. That's because there's 2 20-foot labels here. This is the point separating it. Well, let's say I want a 40-foot label here. I don't want 2 20-foot labels. So the way we can resolve that, if we select the point here and then hit delete on our keyboard, it'll delete that point separating the 2 walls, and it'll combine that label into one. So again, if you have 2 labels on one or 2 dimensions on one wall, just click the point separating it, and it will combine them into one. Let's say we realize, you know what, on this second floor, this bay window should not have been there. It's only on the first. I need to get rid of this bay window. How do I do that? Well, very similar to the way we combine these labels, we can do the same thing here. I'm going to just click the endpoint, and when I press delete, keep an eye on the 1514. It'll drop in real time as I delete it, and we'll just get a 12-foot label here, and then I'll center and fit back out. So we just quickly remove that bay window from the second floor. We didn't have to reopen anything. So sometimes maybe it's quicker to just clone an area and delete a piece out like that, if that's faster for you. Let's say we made another mistake, and this goes into how to reopen areas and things like that. You may or may not need a reopen area. If you forgot like a bump out or a bay window or something like that, you might. But let's say in this case, we made a mistake, and this second floor actually only went halfway over the garage. So this should have been 10 feet, and this should have been 30. It came 10 over, came down, and then came 30 back. So how do we fix that? So the way we would fix it, I'm going to select this 24-foot wall here. It's going to highlight it, and I need to move that wall 10 feet to the left. So I'm going to tap 10 on my keyboard. I'm going to tap the left arrow, and I get a preview here of where it's going to go if I press enter, and I get a preview of what these dimensions will change to if I press enter. So once I press enter, if you keep an eye on that square footage, it's going to update to 1258. And now we have our 10-foot and our 30-foot wall. Some examples you may need to reopen an area. Other examples you may not. Now, I think in the question I got asked, how do you change the 7-foot wall and the 3-foot wall to 5 feet each? If we wanted to make this wall and this wall each 5 feet, we can actually do that. I'm going to use the lasso. First one I'm going to change is this 7-foot wall. So what I need to do is select all the walls, and I'm selecting the patio too, because that's going to have to change. Everything's going to have to change altogether. So I'm selecting everything from here to here, because I'm changing this 7-foot wall. So I need to move this 2 feet down, and it'll change it to 5. So I'm just going to tap the down arrow twice and then press enter. Now we're at 5 feet here. Now we want this 3-foot wall to be 5 feet also. So I'm going to do the very similar thing here, fence everything, and I'm going to go up 2 feet. And now I just changed both of those walls to 5 feet, and I didn't have to reopen anything. Again, that's a little bit advanced. Technically, you could reopen that area and do it, but then you'd have to reopen the patio too. So it'd be a little bit harder. Whereas the way I showed you, you're actually editing multiple areas at one time. I'm going to move back to my pointer arrow here, and I'm going to move these labels up. So if you click on one label, if If you click on another, it'll deselect the other. If you select one and then hold Control and click multiple items, you can highlight multiple things at one time and move them together. So if I wanted to move this first floor and this label, I'd click here, hold Control, click here. That's going to keep my spacing right and everything. And then I can move this together wherever I want it. In this second floor, I have an open area. There's an open stairwell here. I need to subtract that square footage from this number here. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to come here and I'm actually going to use a quick shape. Now you can draw this one line at a time by going to draw area and drawing, 10 over, 5 down, 10 back and draw it. I'm actually going to use something called a quick shape. So right below draw area, there's a little black arrow. And if you select that arrow, you'll get a couple of options here. I'm going to start with this rectangle. So I'm going to click on it. It'll put me in the draw mode. And then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click and I'm just going to drag my mouse and I'm going to click again. So this is what, 15 by 7. Let's say it should have been 12 by 8. I'm going to type in 12. I'm going to type in 8 and I'm going to OK it. So there's our 12 by 8 opening. So the next step, we're going to go to define. Since it's a single shape, I'll go ahead and just define it as open. So I'm just going to drop the word open in there. So it's 96 square feet, that area. So I need to subtract that 96 from this number now. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to come to my pointer. I'm going to select the open area. And while that area is selected, I have an option right here for auto subtract. I'm going to go to auto subtract and it's going to ask me, what do you want to subtract from? I want to subtract from the second floor. When I OK this, that 1258 should drop to 1162. So we just subtracted that open area from the second floor. That's typically used for like open areas like this that are in the middle of another area or wraparound porches. You might have to subtract the house from the porch. Those are just a few common ways that I've seen auto subtract used. If you want to confirm whether or not an area has been subtracted from another, if you hover over your calcs tab here, if I drop down the details for second floor, I see subtracted 96. And if I drop that down, I can see open as what is being subtracted. Let's say we forgot to add a bump out to this garage. So we do need to reopen it to make a change. If you happen to have a closed area and you need to reopen it, what you're going to do, go to the pointer arrow. All you need to do is click on the line you want to reopen at. It'll turn red. And then while that line is red, click delete on your keyboard and it'll delete that one wall. Once that one wall is deleted, you're going to come back to draw mode and you're going to put your cursor on whichever end you want to start back on. And we'll go ahead and let's say we forgot to add a little, bump out here, maybe that comes something like this. And then when we reclose it, it recalculates. So again, to reopen an area, you'll just go to your pointer arrow, click on the wall you want to reopen at, delete that one line. Once you delete the one wall, go back into draw mode. And let's say I want to put this back how it was. Don't click and delete each wall individually. Click one wall, reopen the area, go back into draw mode, put your cursor where you want to start. And then if I want to delete more lines now, I'm going to delete while I'm in draw mode. So I'm going to go delete, 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 and I'm just going to press A and it'll reclose the area. I would recommend delete one wall, then go into draw. If you want to delete more through draw mode. Otherwise, delete the one wall and fix what you need. Okay, I'm going to delete a couple of areas here and I'm going to go into cloning areas, copying areas, things like that. So to delete any area, just click inside the area and hit delete on your keyboard and it'll delete it. Click an area, delete. Click an area, delete. And now we have our one first floor here. Let's say we have a first floor and a second floor, or a first floor and a basement, or we have two shapes that are exactly the same, just different area types. So what I do in this example, let's say I need a second floor, same shape. I'm going to click inside the area that I want to clone. And while that area is highlighted, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to clone area. Okay, once I do that, I'll get my define panel. I'm going to define this one as the second floor and click apply. And now I have a second floor right on top. So I'm just going to drag it off to the side here. And now we have two areas. That's how you would clone an area. Typically, I'm only going to use clone if it's a different area type. So like a second floor, a basement, another area. If it's the same area type, you can use copy and paste and it saves you a step. So let's say this should have actually been first floor. If you come across an area that's defined incorrectly, select that area. And then while that area is highlighted, go to area props right here, or you can right click and go to properties. Either one will work. And that'll bring back up the define panel. And then you can redefine it as the area you want. So I just changed that back to a first floor. Let's say we're doing an apartment complex. And this apartment complex, it has 4 buildings that are exactly the same shape. They're just flipped or mirrored. They're connected to one another. And there's a courtyard in the middle. I need to draw that. How would I do it? We already have 2 of the buildings drawn. I just need this wall here to align with this wall. So I'm going to click inside this first floor area and I'm going to come here to flip area left or right. So I just flipped that area. Now I want to come here and link them together and see how easy that was to snap together. That's why I recommend leave that snap on all the time. It makes it really easy to snap areas together. All right, so now I have 2 buildings, but I need 4. I need 2 more, and I need to flip those top to bottom. So I'm going to click in one area, hold Control, click in the other. Now that I have both, I'm just going to click copy, and then I'm going to click paste. And then I'm going to drag these up top here. And then I'll do Shift C, bring everything into view. All right, next thing I need to do, I'm going to flip this one top to bottom. I'm going to flip this one top to bottom. Then I'm going to select both of the areas. I'm going to snap them together. So the little green dot moving around, that's a snapping point. So I just use Tab to get my snapping point to the corner I wanted it on. And then when I get it close and let it go, it'll snap into place. And now we have our 4 buildings drawn, all the same. Then we have the courtyard in the middle. Now we need to calculate. So I'm going to go here. I'm just going to drag and drop land. And now we have the calculations of that courtyard in the middle as well. So again, we drew one building. We then copied or cloned, flipped and mirrored, and then made it all match up. And then we defined the middle piece. All right, so the next thing, I showed you how to draw a quick shape. For the open to below, I use the square or the rectangle. We have a circle tool here. So the next thing, let's say we have a pool, maybe it's a circle pool. I'm going to click on the circle. I'm just going to click, drag, click again, and it's going to ask me here, what is the radius or what is the diameter? I can pick either one I want. Let's say we have a radius of 10 feet for this pool. So I'm going to do 10 and okay it. And now we have a circle with a radius of 10. So we could, define that as a pool. We wanted to, right? So we have our pool. Now let's say on this pool, I have a deck coming off of this I need to draw next. I'm going to come to draw mode here, and I'm going to start inside this circle intentionally. I'm going to kind of do something like this, and I'm just dragging this out with my mouse to get the rough shape of the deck, right? And I intentionally went inside this circle. And the reason I did that, because now that I have this drawn, I'm going to go ahead and define this as a wood deck. And notice when I move it now, it cut those extra pieces off for me, and it figured out how long these are automatically. So if I move this back now, I can just delete these extra lines, and now I'm perfectly aligned with that circle. I didn't have to try to trace it exactly. It figured all that out for me. Maybe now this should have been 17 feet up here. I can grab this 20-foot wall now and move it 2 feet right and press enter and adjust that deck now that I have that hard circle traced. I don't have to worry about that part. Let's say they have a gazebo here too. I need to add a gazebo up here now. So I'm going to come to the quick shape, select the multi-sided one, and I'm just going to click, drag, click again. Okay, 8 sides is the default, but let's say this gazebo has 10 sides and each wall is 8 feet. So I'm going to do 10 sides at 8 feet each, hit OK. There's 10 sides at 8 feet each. Let me drag this up. And then we'll define that as a gazebo now. And it's calculated. And if we want to see all the dimensions, we can do the Control F10 just to make sure they're all 8 feet. So that's tips on drawing these quick shapes. The circle tool is big, makes it really easy to draw a circle. If you have something like that gazebo, tell us how many sides you have, how long is each wall, we'll figure it out for you and draw it. And then the wood deck coming off that circle, that's just a quick tip on how to do that. I'm going to go ahead and delete these areas here. The next thing I'm going to show is how to draw at an angle, and then I'll quickly go over some symbols. So let's say I need to add a patio. And the patio I need to add, it comes from this corner, it comes 10 feet down, 15 out, 10 back up, and then closes back. So a lot of times on something like this, I'll see people try to draw it off to the side here, then they'll try to drag it over and then try to rotate it and make it match, which isn't easy to do. So here's how I would draw it. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to draw this. Whichever one makes most sense to you, I'd say use. I'm going to go into draw area, and I'm going to start on this corner. So I'm going to come here, click, and I'm going to trace this wall, but I'm not going to press enter. I know I usually say don't trace walls. This is the one reason I say you need to trace a wall. I have my 15-foot wall. I haven't pressed enter yet to place it. Now, remember when I first started showing you how to draw, I told you if you type in a number and press enter without putting a direction, it'll change that wall to that distance. Well, we need a 10-foot wall here. We're at the angle we want. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to type in 10 and press enter. Now we're at 10 feet down that wall. We're at the exact angle we need to be. Now I'm going to tap enter to place it. Now we're going to use the turn. So the same way we did the 20L53, I'm going to do 15L, and I want 90, so I don't need to put in a degree. So I'm just going to press enter, and there's my 15 foot coming off. Tap enter again. Now remember when we did a bay window, we press B to mirror the first angle? That'll work here too. I'm just going to press B, and then finally I'll press A. And now I have my patio. I'll go ahead and drag and drop it. We're perfectly square off of this line. We didn't have to try to go rotate something to make it match. We just drew it in place and defined it using the angle we already had drawn. That's a tip on drawing an angle like that. The other way you can do it, I'm going to go to my pointer arrow, and let's say we need the same thing on this side. Here's another way to do it that might be easier for some. And this actually makes it really easy to draw like a bay window off of this angle too. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the angled wall, and then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on vertical. And what that's going to do, it's going to rotate my whole sketch and make that line vertical. So now if I go to draw, all I got to do is snap to this corner. I'll go 15 left, 10 down, come 15 back, enter. I don't need to trace back, press enter again. Then I'll come to my pointer. I'll select one of the top walls and I'll tell it make it horizontal. Now it just rotated my sketch back, and then I can go ahead and drag and drop patio in and define my area. And I got the same result. You can either square that line up, vertical or horizontal on your screen, and draw it straight up and down and then rotate the whole thing back, or you can draw it at the angle like I showed you. Whichever is more comfortable for you, I'd say that's the route you should probably take. The last thing I'll go over here is I'm going to quickly just show some symbols. We have a favorites here, which has all of our most common, but these are like residential common things, so you may or may not need any of these. If you come up here where it says favorites, there's actually a bunch of different categories. If you're looking for like maybe an elevator symbol or something like that, if you go into insurance, okay, and let's see if we have one. We have, here we go. We have an elevator. So you just, drag and drop the wording or the symbol in you want. You can click to delete. If you want to resize, you can just drag a corner, make it bigger, smaller. There's categories up top that you may or may not have noticed. And the insurance one actually has a lot of like more commercial type symbols in them. That's where you can find that type of stuff. Lastly, if you really want to, if you use if there's certain symbols you use a lot, you can actually come to organize right here. And if you go to organize, it'll actually take you to the folder symbol files are. And let's say I wanted to get that elevator and put it in my favorite so that it's in my favorites. So we would go to insurance. We would find the elevator we want, the elevator. So let's say we want, that dashed one. What I would do is I would copy the file. So I'd go to copy, and then I'd come back to symbols and I'd go into favorites and I would paste it in there. And then when you close and reopen Apex, the next time you go to symbols and you go to favorites, you'll have that elevator in this favorites list, and you don't have to go to the other folder to find it. Demonstrate the rotate feature. So I'll show you a couple different rotates. So if we wanted to rotate a symbol, click on the symbol, or really if you want to rotate anything, a symbol, a text, a dimension, or an area, when you select the item, you'll get a little rotate icon right here. You can click and drag that if you prefer to use your mouse, and you can rotate it however you want. Or while the symbol or area or text is selected, if you press R on your keyboard, each time you press R, it'll rotate 45 degrees. If you hold Shift and press R, it'll go 5 degrees each time you press R. If you do Shift Control R, it'll go 1 degree each time you press R. And that's for anything. Areas, symbols, text, all of that, rotate works the same. So when you start to rotate close, it's going to go in 45s. When you click on this rotate icon, if you click, hold the left button and move your mouse up and then start rotating, it's going to go in smaller increments. So the further away you get, the more control you have. The closer you get, it's going to start snapping. So, and then I get further, now I can get real precise. Once you click on the rotate, keep the left button down and then move your mouse further away if you're trying to get more precise. Or again, if you're a keyboard user, hold Shift and R or Control Shift R and you can get real precise as well. The last thing, if we wanted to rotate our whole sketch, you're going to come up here to rotate sketch. So maybe we wanted to rotate this 90 degrees. So we just rotated the whole sketch at that point. And this will actually show it better. You can see the degree. So if I zoom out on this a little and I go to rotate sketch, when I pull up in a way, we can see 1, 2, you can see the degree it's going in ones. As I get closer, we're going in 15s right now, or 5s, where it's kind of moving around. Now we're going in 45s. The further you are, the closer you are. That's just some tips on the control. So that's going to wrap things up. I hope everyone found this helpful. Again, if you have any comments, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. If you do know anyone who would be interested, feel free to like, share, and/or subscribe. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I'll catch y'all on the next one.